Well, some of our members on the team that produces this are traveling. So the Fatiha, I guess, will fall on me. So Al-Fatiha, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. Okay. So let's dive right in. Okay. So when I came across this picture of a camel, and the picture I saw was an elephant a long time ago, where all the body parts are composite. And so back to our theme on cross sections, of course, can you imagine this camel coming through flat land and say, I'm going to drop this camel through your two-dimensional plane. Tell me what you see. Well, you'll see all sorts of strange things. You won't really see a camel. You'll see all these compositions inside the camel. So that's certainly a good reminder of how cross sections, they tell you some of the picture, but not the whole thing. And of course, there's the famous Saptam Purusha, the 7 men who go to the elephant, and they're all trying to figure out what the elephant is. And that, again, is an example of reminding us to try to see the whole picture. So this is very, very old situation that Ibn Arabi takes us through with this idea of seeing cross sections, because that's what our limit is. Okay, let me do a few more things in just a second. Okay. Now this picture here, if you'll remember from our very first meeting way back in early April, that prism. And we looked at that with the way the light comes into the prism and then splits off or makes 10 different images. So 10 images coming from the one image. And so this was the idea of both the shadow play and then the mirror, both those metaphors. And so Ibn Arabi is telling us that when the light is cast to us, we project different screens or different images, excuse me. And actually, and you could say there are 10 of those images. If you want to go with the number 5, the 5, that in the 5, there is the 10. So there's, anyway, 5 dimensions. So 10 planes or 10 volumes. And so this idea also is about the recitations of Quran, because someone came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, I just heard so-and-so saying this verse this way. And the Prophet said, recite the verse. And he recited the verse. And he says, that is also the way the verse was given to me by Gabriel. And so there are 7 recitations of Quran. So in a sense, you can see that the Quran over there, as it comes into this dimension, comes in with 7 different forms or 7 different recitations. And so a cross-section of them would be one of those recitations. And so with cross-section mentality, we would look at 2 recitations and say, oh, one is right and one is wrong. Or one is the Quran and one isn't the Quran. But with this understanding of multiple recitations, 7 recitations, we can see that the one Quran can have 7 different recitations and they're not mutually exclusive. So one isn't right and the others are wrong. And so this is the first way that we begin to see this kind of cross-sectional mentality hurting us or stopping us from seeing the larger picture. Okay. So now we'll be on this slide for a bit. So this idea that Ibn Arabi develops about, that I'm using the word cross-section about, is talking about how something over there comes into our realm or our dimensions a certain way, and that he trains us to how we should be finding out how we can go back and forth, how we can see what's coming to us and compare that with what we see, and then to see the cross section and know that it's coming from something larger. So this becomes the idea. You can look at the detail, and the closer and closer you look at the detail, the more the streaming larger reality becomes apparent to you, or sensed. And as we talked about last week, there's another way. You can start from the larger picture and then go down into the details and see how each of the details are reflecting this larger picture. So this picture here, and I can't really loop it, but we'll just see, you can see how when something, this is an idea of something coming through from a larger dimension into our 3 dimensions, or in this case, into 2 dimensions as a flat screen. So when it gets pulled through, when this camel with all its composition starts coming through, we see different pieces of it. And as we see different pieces, we have to recognize that when we see this piece, which looks different from the piece before, it's still coming from the same shape. So that's why they give colors here as a way to help us see that we're looking at different parts of this shape, which cannot be encompassed into 3 dimensions. And this is why Arabi is always telling us that knowledge is of these things cannot be had because they cannot be encompassed. Now, this idea then of what's coming through, is Ibn Arabi talks about this as the first image in the mist. And that image is called the pen, or it's called the first intellect, or it's called the Nur Muhammad. And he says you can use all 3 or any of those 3. And the idea then is that this Nur Muhammad, who was a prophet before Adam was between water and clay, is a shape, in a sense, shape that's coming through into this dimension, into this world, into this realm. And so this shape then generates, as it moves through the 3 dimensions, as it moves through our volume of existence, it comes out in 313 forms, in 124,000 forms. All of these forms are the picture of, at the moment, at a time and a place, of this shape that's coming through this dimension. So the shape, remember we had the Mobius strip, and then we did a cross section of that, and we had the 4, so that you were dead and we made you alive, and you will die again, and then you will be made to live eternally. So those are the 4 stages, or the 4 parts of this Mobius strip that's split down the middle. In the same way, the Nur Muhammad is coming from an invisible, so invisible, there in the invisible, in a sense, in the first image of the mist, and then becomes visible at a moment in time and place. So in a time and a place, 1,400 some years ago, came into to our visible realm, and then passed away and went into the invisible realm again. And then the 4th stage will be when that Nur Muhammad becomes visible once again, and that will be the master of the people. So that will be the one who will intercede for all of the people, and the mother community is all of the people. And then, so that will be the last and visible stage of this Nur Muhammad. So invisible, visible, invisible, visible. And the concept then that Ibn Arabi shows us is that at each of these people, these images, these forms that are coming to us in time and place, the 124,000, the 313, each of them is coming to us as a deputy of that Nur Muhammad. And this idea of deputy is the naib or the nauba, the idea of nauba, that you have a deputy if someone comes. And what's very interesting is that this root word is that someone has a turn. So you take turns and that you do something in succession. And it is a coming to the water time after time. So we've heard that the Sharia, the definition as Ibn Arabi uses it, is bringing you to the water, taking you to the water. And these are images, people who are taking us to the water, one after the other after the other. And so this is how Ibn Arabi can tell us that there is one authority, there's one prophetic authority, and that is the Nur Muhammad, who then comes out in different times and places, in all of these different images, in all of these different forms. And they all are there to take us to the water. And this taking to the water is in different ways. So that's why this shape here, we see the shape changing. We see the different changes of the shape, the different colors of the shape. All of these things are different. Each cross section, each moment in time and place is different from the other one. But from the sense of this is coming through our realm, we see that it's one, it's from the same place. And the other word that Ibn Arabi uses is daulat. And it's interesting in Malaysia that daulat is like the royal realm, and also means the royal turn, but that's another story. And then Urdu daulat is more like wealth. But daulat for Ibn Arabi in the original Arabi is you take your turn. So when the body of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in this time and place, he took his turn as the Nur Muhammad. And then the first one to recognize that and then to teach him who he is was Khadija. And so Khadija is called the first because she's the first one to recognize what was happening in the visible body of Muhammad, going from invisible, visible, then passing away to invisible, and then at the end, being the master of the people of the mother community, which is all humans. So this Nur Muhammad then is, in a sense, in our slide, then behind, and then coming through into our dimensionality. And as it comes through, we see cross sections. And it's easy to think that these cross sections are different, are exclusive, contradictory, because they all come through a time and a place. I have to make sure I see all that. Yes, and so what allows us to see that this shape that's coming through into our dimensionality is the same shape? What allows us to see that this is the same shape? That is the special face that every created being has. So the special face that every created being has, so minerals, plants, animals, humans, angels, every created being has a special face which is turned to the divine. And that special face sees that this shape that is there at the moment and a time and at a place is the same shape. And we are trained to remember this with the peekaboo, the metaphor of the peekaboo. So the peekaboo game is the way that we remember that something looks different, something can be hidden and then appear, be hidden and appear, and still be there and still be the same shape that's coming through. And so what happens, of course, is that no matter how often we play peekaboo, we tend to lose our training as we grow older. And so we lose the fitness that peekaboo gives us, and we begin to get dominated by the part of us which has to acquire things and has to become on top, to be in control so that it can have the things it wants. So that part of us becomes dominant. So we grab things, we take things that aren't ours because we know that we need to have things and we need to be in charge. We need to be the boss. So all of these sort of psychological pressures can be very dominant. The other pressure is the intellect. The intellect wants to say, I'm in charge of all of this. I'm in charge, and I'll be the one who makes sure you have enough food to eat, make sure you have enough mates to reproduce with, make sure you have all the things you need. Let me be in charge. And so we have this, in a sense, we get taken over. The training that we get with Peekaboo gets lost, and we get taken over by one or both of these forces. And they're all very legitimate forces. It's legitimate that we have a body, therefore we have needs. But then if that defines us, if that becomes our main activity, and then we forget why we're here. And the same way with the intellect. The intellect has its place as the shackles, the hobbles on the camel. So intellect, like common sense, helps us do things that are not stupid and that hurt us and then hurt other people. But if the intellect then becomes all of us, it overwhelms us, then we're in trouble because we no longer have the special face looking towards the divine. And so we don't see what's coming. And then for the first part, the first force that can overtake us, Ibn Arabi talks about love, about love, because that part is saying that it's a true thing to do, to love God for what he gives you as nourishment. So the Prophet ﷺ said, love God for what he does for you. So that's a conditional requited love. And so this is one way that the divine speaks to this part of us, saying that who's nourishing you? I'm nourishing you. So therefore do what I ask you to do. And so that's that one process. The other process is divine love or spirit love. And that's love without any reference to whether it's good for me or bad for me. And then as we heard about intellect, a love that's run by the intellect. No, what's that beautiful word? Well, the beautiful verse that he has there. There's no good in a love that is ruled by the intellect or run by the intellect. And so this is a way that Ibn Arabi helps us to see, look for that special face, the special face, which is then the nafs, which is the soul, which is the true self. And that true self is the one that can see that all of these cross sections are coming from a single shape. And then, so the part that says I want and I have to acquire says I have to study these cross sections in order to get what I want. And that doesn't help very much. Or the intellect says I'll study these cross sections and then I'll know what things are, because that's my way of doing things, analytical. You break things up and you cut things up into slices. And so in a sense, the same shape, which is coming through our dimensions, the same shape is the one that's bringing us back to the water, saying, do these things, listen to me, remember what you used to know, and brings us back to the water. Okay. So this is the concept of Nur Muhammad that Ibn Arabi gives us. And we'll now have the Ilahi, which will go over all of these points. So enjoy.
The angels feed my breath, remove my heart, cleansing one last drop of human dust, making me a vessel of revelation, filled with radiance for the world. Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammad, Ilala. Nuhu Allah, Nuhu, Nuhu Allah, Nuhu, Allah Ali Muhammad. Allah is the eye by which I see 18,000 worlds come forth from me For I was a prophet from eternity before Adam was water and clay. Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammadi, la la. Nuhu Allah Nuhu, Nuhu Allah Nuhu, Allah Ali Muhammad. My loaded hidden treasure, brilliant obscurity, longing to be known, but my luminosity, oh, I was a column of pure radiance before angel that calls the throne. Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammad, Nuhu Muhammad, la la, Nuhu Allah, Nuhu Allah, Nuhu Allah Ali Muhammad.
My name was inscribed beside my Lord's name before Prophet Adam comprehended every name. From my true light shines forth the throne. All souls are expressions of me. Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad illallah. Nurun ala nur, Nurun ala nur, Nala Ali Muhammad. I first received Quran on the night of power. I entered divine presence closer than to bows lengths. I offered you my right hand beneath the tree. Now I entrust you to Ali. Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad illallah. Nurun ala nur, Nurun ala nur, Allah Ali Muhammad.
I flew with Holy Gabriel to Jerusalem. I led the prayer of prophets on the rock of Abraham. My sending, I saw angels standing and bowing. Salat comes first for the dervish of Ali. I rode with the archangel through the heavens. I crossed the absolute limit of creation, entering the essence where no being is, interceding for all the worlds. For your soul, Allah cried, I created my creation. From Arafat I cried, I completed your religion. I placed the royal seal on prophecy. Nuruddin Jarahi is acting for me. Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad, Nur Muhammad illallah. Nur Allah Nur, Nur Allah Nur, Allah Ali Muhammad.
Thank you. Very wonderful. So here we've got, let's see if I can show you all of this. I've got to adjust everything so I can see things too. Here we go. Okay. So we see here, I'm beginning to pull out these shapes. Ibn Arabi talks about crossing the two realms as a bridge. And so if you could imagine a bridge across this gorge, this is Ibn Arabi's metaphor for many things. One of them is the outward and the inward. So he says the outward Sharia and the inward Sharia, the outward law, the inward law. And he says that you put a bridge between the two, and that bridge allows you to cross over from one side back and forth. And crossing over is the same metaphor we have in the word metaphor. So metaphorein, to take something across, to carry something. And so to carry something across is to take something on the outside and show what its meaning on the inside is, and then back again. And then, so this bridge is this crossing bridge, is a crossing bridge. And then the word for dream interpretation is to cross over your dream. So to interpret your dream means to cross it over. So you take what you dreamt and you cross it over to the other side. So this is a passage. And so Ibn Arabi is having us see, instead of looking at cross sections or only one aspect, to be able to cross over, to go back and forth. It's not in our power to see necessarily something that's a shape beyond 3 dimensions in our grasp. And so if it's not in our power to do that, then one of the ways that we understand how to see that bigger picture, that bigger shape, is to cross over, to look here and then look here and then go back and forth. And then crossing over is also in the next verse that we'll be seeing in the next slide, the jawar. The jawar are the ships that are sent and they course over the sea. And then another word with jawar is jariya, the girl, the little girl. So jawar and jariya, these words also have send a deputy. So we just had in the 2 slides above, sending a deputy. This nauba, naib, is to take turns and have someone sent one after the other, who is your deputy and sent one after the other. Jariya then also means run along with. Jawar means the ship that runs on the sea. And then the sun is called Jariya because she courses, she goes across the sky. The Jariya is the little girl who sends the love notes, the love letters between the 2 lovers. And so you give the little girl, say, give it to that person over there. And then she takes the letter and that's the love letter. So she conveys the love letters between the lovers. And then the girl of lively conversation, and Lane quotes so many of the old lexicons, and this is the person that says, this is the one that you love to sit with her and engage her in lively conversation. So that's the Jariya. And also the Jariya is the one who runs swiftly. So so all of these concepts, all of these images are in our mind and in our receptors, and we will see how just that one word with all of these back and forth and coursing and running and conveying messages, how that all works together. If Omar would, if he could recite, and I think, let me know, Omar, that you're going to recite in the correct order, or are you going to recite this way, as you like? So
I'll recite it the way it's written. I'll recite it in the order that it has been. Thank you. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهم اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يسأله من في السماوات والأرض كل يوم هو في شان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان سنفرغ لكم أيها الثقلان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العظيم.
Good, thank you. So this is, in this passage here from volume 1, one of the very, very rare times when Ibn Arabi will cite more than one verse. Usually he cites a half a verse and sometimes a full verse. Very, very rarely does he go to recite 2 verses in a row. And then when he does recite these multiple verses, isn't this interesting? As you can see from the the numbers on the, I didn't change them to the other style Arabic numbers, but these numbers, they're not in order. So it's interesting how when he does decide to give us more than one verse, it's not even in order. But he's going to say, as we say on the side, if people could read this way, then no two rams would butt their heads. So let's see how he means this to be read. So then he sent the two oceans to meet. So that we have, that's from the verse there. Between the two, a barrier that they do not breach. Okay, so between the two, a barrier, that's the barzakh, the membrane. So we've seen that's the mirror, that's the shadow play curtain, the curtain that the shadows are projected on. So that's the barzakh. Then which of your cherishers' gift will you deny? So then he's going to go into it. Will you deny the ocean to which he will connect you and make you annihilated from the entities? So behind this shadow play screen, there is an ocean. And when we are connected to it, we will be annihilated from all the entities. So the image that is cast onto this cloth, this curtain, when it moves outside the curtain to this ocean, to which I will be connected to, I will be annihilated. The image that I am will be annihilated. Or will you deny the ocean in which he differentiates you and calls all of you created beings? Or what about on this side, the ocean, which is this picture that we're seeing on this screen of all these entities, all these created beings? Are we going to deny that this is not an ocean of created beings? Are we going to deny that when our image goes into that other ocean, we will be annihilated, that image will be annihilated, and then in which case will then be projected one more time, in which case that image will be annihilated? Or will you deny the barzakh, this membrane upon which the supremely compassionate one settles? So the supremely compassionate one settled is the istiwa, the settling of Rahman on the arsh. So the arsh now is this curtain. So this curtain then is the cosmos. And the cosmos, the curtain which everything is projected on, is where Ar-Rahman has settled. And so therefore it is the domain, the realm of the name Ar-Rahman. So it is the domain, the realm of Rahman, of kind mercy. Indeed, then which of your cherishers' gift will you deny? And now he's not quoting the verse exactly, he's quoting it differently. He brings out from the timeless ocean, the pearls, and from the eternal ocean, the corals. So this is it could be corals or pearls, or both could be pearls, but there's one set of pearls, and then there's a divider, a separator, another pearl or a coral. And then there's another group of pearls. So maybe big pearls and a small pearl, or big pearls and a coral. And this coral and pearl necklace is the necklace that in the subcontinent is called Mana Pravala, which is in the east part of the subcontinent. It's the Tamil and Sanskrit, which one Sanskrit, one Tamil, one Sanskrit, one Tamil, like that. And on the west side, it's the Malayalam and Arabic. So Malayalam, Arabic, Malayalam, Arabic. And that is a necklace that creates a necklace. And Ibn Arabi starts out with the concept that poems for him are nazim, and that is they're arranged in an order of, he gives you a pearl and a coral, and a pearl and a coral. And that is the rhythm of his poetry all throughout the Futuhat. Then which of your cherishers' gift will you deny? He has the coursing ships, so the ships that are going back and forth. These are the ships that are coming back between these oceans. So these ships are coursing the ocean, the ocean of timelessness, the ocean of eternity, the ocean of the world we are in now, and they are coursing back and forth. And they're commencing their origination courses from the divine name-based truths. So these truths are coming, they're all divine name-based, and they're coming out into this world that we see as cross-sections. They're going across the ocean of the That, most holy, like tall mountains. So these are these tall ships, tall mountains. Then which of your cherishers' gift will you deny? Of who demands whoever is in the skies and the earth, And here he only quoted the first word, yasaluhu, of who demands the upper world for its being, for its elevation and its sanctity, and the lower world, where we are, for its descent and its deficiency during every tiniest drop. The word deficiency here is the field that is not irrigated with an acequia, so it doesn't have saki giving water, and it doesn't have its own source of water. So therefore it is dry and dependent on the rains, constantly dependent on the rains. So we are these fields. We have no source of water for our being, but the one rain who is Allah. And we have no other source of this rain. And then the tiniest drop is that the prayer is, make this tiny drop not be the last or all there is. Make a big rain. And so we were asking for the big rain because we get a tiny drop that makes us being, and we said, I want more, I want more. And this is why the lover of Allah, the lover of God, is the one who says, I can drink the entire sea and I will still be thirsty with my tongue hanging down, as Bayezid Bastami said. So you always ask for more. Every day who is upon a radiant brilliance, then which of your cherishers' gift will you deny? Everything on her will disappear. This on her, aleha, fan, aleha, so everything that's flush against the earth will disappear. Now watch, because remember I've told you that it's so interesting that that Ibn Arabi talks about fil ard, the Quran talks about fil ard, in the earth. So as long as we are in the earth, whether we're alive or dead, we're in the earth. So we're never outside of the earth. Once we are born into this earth, we are never outside of the earth. Our body has the tiniest piece always in the earth. And because it's in the earth, it's always set and prepared and prepped to be worshiping. And so when you have this word alehafan, upon her or flush against her, that will disappear. Now we know that the image that's on the curtain, here's the earth, and the flush against this earth curtain, that image is going to disappear. Because when that image moves off the earth, it will disappear. But you don't disappear. I don't disappear because I am in the earth. And whether when I'm alive in the earth or after I've died and I'm in the earth, I'm in the earth, and therefore my images will continue to be projected. Those images all disappear while I stay in the earth to create more images. Whenever the light is cast to me, I'm creating more images. And the entities will not be voided. So my images are voided, but the entity, because it's in the earth, in Mother Earth, she will not be voided, not be annihilated. But the earth is a journey from near to nearer. So this is a process of being near and nearer. Then which of your cherishers' gift we deny? We shall finish, and that means we will finish with you or we will finish to you. So that's minkum or alaykum, and which is we will finally make you the object to which we direct ourselves. So that will be the vision on the dune. So we'll finally, that will be after all of this stuff has happened, you will then be on the vision on the dune. Then which of your cherishers' gifts will you deny? So from this, then he asks, now if the Quran were to be read like this, no two would disagree, and no two antagonists would come out, and no two rams would butt their heads. Therefore, scrutinize carefully your signs and verses, and do not exit from your that, exit from who you are, which is a slave. If you do so exit, then you must surely devote yourself to clarity. So if you do exit and we allow the part of us, which is a good part, which what says I need to acquire, I need to control. If I get that too much, I need to have clarity. Say, oh, that is my selfish self speaking. And then if I want to cut everything up and learn only from cross-section, then I have to have clarity. Oh, that's my intellect speaking. And I am not the intellect. When someone says, who are you? Nobody says, this is who I am. They don't point to their brain. They say, this is who I am. Okay. When the world is safe from your opinion and your management, he will be truly under your subjugation. So when the intellect just takes the back seat and says, I'm no longer in charge of everything, only then will everything be under your subjugation. This is why he was created. That's why the world was created. He exalted, said, and subjugated for you is whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth entirely from him. May God guide us and you to what has our betterment and our happiness, our felicity in this world and the next. He is the most generous friend. So that's how that works. Okay. Okay, now Klaus will give us this poem, I think.
When there comes a quality, whichever quality it may be, you assign for us an abundant allotment in it, then a place to drink in. The quality is the same, whether in blameworthy status or in a status of praiseworthy. The all is sought by the people. Do you not see his descriptions in our qualities? And our description as an epithet of his? No denying. He has a delight as a state and experience, and a cheerful smile to the weariness which came to us, and an amazement. Mocking and forgetting is his, and wavering and tricking, scheming. All of that is arranged, established. These are descriptions of the divine. So watch closely to the words I spoke. Extend them as a tent rope and tie them down. In this way are the epithets of the friends. I commend them for what is blameworthy according to human culture. So investigate deeply. Whoever denies the knowledge to which we have elucidated is not someone who is knowledgeable, not someone approaching close to God.
So this is a way of, back to our metaphor of cross-section, this is a way of saying you look at the cross-section and you think you see the whole picture, but it's not there. That all of these qualities are divine qualities, even though in our human culture, we don't like them. And so Ibn Arabi takes one section where he looks just at a few of these verses and then says they also mean, they talk about the friends, the awliya, this other way. So we have a verse like the ones who are neglectful of their prayers, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. And so this, of course, we read that, and one meaning is those who are neglectful of their prayers. But there's another meaning, and that is the meaning, the shape. There's another shape to it that is outside of the shape of the intellect, and it requires the special face that we have to see when this source is coming to us, when the Quran is coming to us. We see it with a special face. We see that there are more than one meanings, and that the meanings that seem to be so harsh and negative are actually beautiful qualities of the friends. So they're the ones who are neglectful delayers of their prayers. And so they're neglectful of the prayer of God through them. So they neglect that God is praying through them. They are seeing that their short hairs are in the hand of God. He is making them stand during the prayer, and he is making them bend, and he is making them bow down, and he is reciting through them. So they're reciting God's words, and God is reciting them through them. And he is saying Allahu Akbar through them. And he's saying Salam to close the prayer through them. You see, he is their hearing and their seeing and their tongues and their hand and their feet, just as the hadith says. People who have this as their vision and their state are of their prayer neglectful. So they neglect their prayer because it's not their prayer. You see, he did not say neglectful of their prayer of the salat. He said they're neglectful that it is their prayer. This is how they express his word of their prayer neglectful. So salatihim, so salatihim, that him, their prayer is everything, because it says it's not their prayer. So they are neglectful of this thing that they're doing because it is Allah who's doing. And then there are those who are praying, alladhina hum yara'un, the ones who are praying in order to be seen. But he says, those are the people, like the Prophet ﷺ, who would stand on the minbar and say, pray as you see me praying, so that people could learn how to pray by watching him and emulate him. So they are doing it for show. But this doesn't mean hypocrisy or pomp and circumstance. It means to show them how the prayer is done. And then those who, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, the ones who prevent or stop up the ways of assistance. So the ways of assistance, the ways assistance is given are the usual ways, the institutional ways of getting assistance. So there are institutional ways of getting assistance to the poor. And these are saying, they are preventing that. They're saying, no, the institution is not providing for the poor. Allah is providing for the poor. And so they say that what we should do, instead of relying on the institutions or the secondary causes, we should say, as in the Fatiha, you alone do we ask for help. You are not helped by the means of help reaching. You are not helped by the institution, you are helped by the divine. So you speak directly to the divine. You alone do we ask for help to get this kind of material and things that are needed for the poor. So the same verse, which can be read one way, when it's read with a special face, then we see that these are descriptions of the friends, and these are beautiful things. And so that's why we have in Ilahi, we say, wherever I look, I see only saints. So wherever I look, I see only friends. I only see the friends of God. Because everywhere I look, whatever is being done, I see that this is those who are neglectful of their prayer. These are the friends who are neglectful that the idea that the prayer is theirs. Okay. And we'll have to probably do some of this later, but I'll just quickly say that I was given a beautiful reference to something called the 3 scripts that this Muhammad Javad Khavaji is doing, the thirdscript.com. And this is from that calligrapher wrote 3 scripts. One he read, but no one else. Another he read, and others too. The third, neither he nor anyone else could read. I am that 3rd script. And Ibn Arabi's, the image that he saw of the hu, lahu, flickering and fluctuating, this is that 3rd script. Because when he saw that, he began to say poetry, and all the poetry was rhyming. And he said, and if it ends, and if it ever ends, this is what he saw. So the poetry that he in a sense dived into an endless source of poetry, verse after verse after verse coming. And this goes back to the imagery of the deputies, one after the other, taking us to the water, one after the other, taking us to the water. So if to see each of these images taking us to the water, these people taking us to the water, is to see the Nur Muhammad invisible, visible, invisible, and then finally visible. And it's to see that the Quran is coming invisible, visible, invisible, and then finally visible. And then is to see that all of these verses are coming to us, and so they cannot be stopped and say, this is the last one or the only one. It's what comes next and next and next. And each one of them, wherever you look, you see only friends. Okay, so we'll probably have to stop there. We'll do that. The other slide, this is about the opening the shirt to get the fresh rain on the chest. And so this fresh rain is to be close to the curtain and get closer and closer to the curtain, because knowing that that light has just cast the shadow from the source, and that you get closer and closer and closer. Now, if you go past the curtain, the image is annihilated. But fortunately, the entity is buried or living in the earth, and therefore more images will come. Okay, so we can have our song.
Dawno Derseku cenneta.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So this went a little bit longer, but thank you very much. So glad to see you all again. Okay.
Question, can we please
Yes.
go back to the slide that Klaus read out?
Uh-huh.
Sheikh Shuaib didn't discuss the text on the hand side of that slide. Perhaps he'd be kind enough to do so,
Okay.
if at all possible. It seemed quite full.
Okay, here we go. Let me adjust everything. Yeah, so what's happening here, and please, if you need the PDF, if that will be helpful to you, I can send you the PDF anytime. All of these in red are these the Hadith Qudsis, or the reports from the divine. And so what Ibn Arabi has done on the poem, he just gives one word, and he hopes that we know that that one word is actually a reference to a larger report from the divine, so that God becomes cheerful towards him, as the family of the man who was away becomes cheerful when he gets back to them. So these are all of these qualities and epithets, to be amazed, to mock, to forget, all of these things which we think shouldn't, according to the intellect, belong to the divine. So the intellect, Ibn Arabi says, there's one place, I just worked on that yesterday. He says, he talks about one thing. He talks about the meanings that are established by meanings. So usually meaning is established by a thing. So you say, this thing is beautiful. But he says, no, what about when meaning is established by meaning? So he then, this is what we talked about a few weeks ago, it is loving. So instead of loving someone, you are loving. And so it's not a subject-object grammar. So Ibn Arabi is saying, this is how these things work. And he said, this grammar is one which confuses the intellect, and we give no satisfaction of anything to the intellect. In other words, it's confusing the intellect, and I'm not going to give the intellect anything that will render it satisfied. And so he's trying to get us to knock out the intellect and see that all of these strange, unusual qualities are divine qualities. And then when you see wavering, you see that, oh, God said, I do not waver to do anything as I waver to take the soul of the faithful one. So wavering back and forth. So whenever we look, we see divine qualities. So wherever we look, we see the friends of God. So, and I can send that, the PDF to you if you just go ahead and email me, and we'll send that. Okay.
Here's another question. What does Ibn Arabi say about the way prayers should be done? Does he recognize following the Sharia, strictly speaking, i.e. praying 5 times a day, or does he have a different view, a more flexible view and or definition of prayer?
Okay. Well, so what's fascinating about Ibn Arabi, of course, is that he is absolutely detail oriented, and he's absolutely not detail oriented at the same time. And so it's one of the things that's come up is that when he talks about the Salat in about 800 pages or something like that. It's a pretty large section. So 800 or so pages about the details, the legal details of the prayer. And one of the one that strikes me the most is that he says the argument is, when does the prayer begin? And so there are all these different timings. And so he says, the prayer begins when three things are happening. One, there's a certain time, like the sun is a certain relationship to the earth, the horizon. 2, you remember, oh, I remember it's time for prayer, then it is time for prayer. Or 3, you wake up and you say, oh, it's time for prayer. So those are the 3 places that are the timings for prayer. And so he says there's no making up the prayer. When the time comes, either by the sun being a certain position, or you remembering, or you waking up. Then that is the moment of prayer. So he has the way he looks at these things over 800 pages is absolutely fascinating. So you'll have to wait for volume 3 and 4 for that, which I hope is coming out soon, inshallah. So volume 3 and 4, which will have about 800 or 1,000 pages on the prayer.
Baki asks, can you elaborate? When the Muhammad Nur becomes visible in different sections, the sections are contradictory, not complementary or compatible.
Yeah, sometimes they can be compatible, but sometimes they're contradictory. And that's because each are coming in a time and a place, and then in another, so time, place, and then, in this dimensionality. So as they come out, as that shape was coming towards us, there's a red here, and then the red comes down here, then the yellow comes here, and the green goes here, and it's moving this way and this way and that. If you freeze time, you say, oh, this is yellow. And then if you go to the next moment, oh, wait, it's red. Can't they make up their mind? And they'll all, isn't it red or is it yellow? And the answer is it's yellow and it's red. It depends on where you are when you're watching that shape coming through. And so I put the numbers there. Ibn Arabi talks about the 313 messengers and the 124,000 prophets. And then there are the others. In our tradition, we talk about the other guides, who are, the ones who give birth to this process, and they are also guides. And so we have this huge number of guides who are that shape in that moment. And as they're coming, you see each one. So when the Prophet ﷺ takes a visible form, then it's not suddenly, oh, those were prophets before and now he is. And then after he dies, then now what? It's simply, this is the visible description of the Nur Muhammad. And then all of those, therefore, who came before are coming from his turn in succession. And then after him, the Nabuwat, the prophethood, is the true dream. So that is also alive, well and alive after his passing. And so we stick with the true dream. And the true dream is that which allows us to go on that bridge to go across the two worlds.
Sheikh Afariha, assalamu alaikum, says, what is the meaning of 313, and is the special face a single divine name?
So the 313, 124,000, so messengers, prophets, and then others, those are these numbers that Ibn Arabi is giving to us. The special face, he says, the special face, he talks about it often. One of the ways he says, the special face, which was the reception of Quran and Torah. So Quran and Torah came to the special face. All of the divine revealed books come to the special face. And every created being, so minerals, plants, animals, humans, everyone, every created being has that special face. And so this is how the bees are given revelation, because they have a special face which receives a revelation. This is how Mother Earth receives a revelation, and then she will extract those who are in her on the last day. But that's her revelation, and she has that revelation because she has the special face. So animals and plants, the rock, they said, the Prophet ﷺ said, this pebble recognized my status as the visible Nur Muhammad ﷺ. So the rock, which is a mineral then, recognizes that because that rock, that pebble had a special face, which could see that what's happening right now is this human being in visible form is coming from the invisible Nur Muhammad. So plants, animals, minerals, humans, all of them receiving with a special face. So, and our special face is absolutely working beautifully. When we are created, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your cherisher? Our special face receives that vision, that tajalli, and says, yes, you are. And then we begin to do peekaboo, and then we don't do peekaboo so well anymore. We grow up, we outgrow peekaboo, and we forget all these things. And then we have to be reminded by minerals and plants and animals that we too have a special face, like the trees do, like the bees do, and that can we then return to understanding and seeing through the special face.
Beautiful. Latifa London says, please can you explain something which I never understood? How does Prophet Muhammad come before Prophet Adam?
Right. So this is the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ says, I was a prophet when Adam was between water and clay. So I was a prophet before when Adam was between water and clay. So the first image in the mist, that I am a hidden treasure, I have treasure that is concealed, and I love to be recognized. The first image that is created and then sees who created him is this Nur Muhammad. Ibn Arabi says, call it Nur Muhammad, call it the Aql al-Awwal, call it the Qalam. These are just three names. And so, and then after that, this body form of Adam Eve is created. So the Adam Eve body form is created afterwards. And so that's how that before time, in a sense, so before the human time, before Adam and Eve time, I was a prophet. And then after that, the first visible prophets become the Adam Eve, and then the next prophets come, and the next prophets and messengers, and next prophet, next church, until he comes as a visible form. So that's how that works.
Couple of comments. Lufti says this makes perfect sense of the constant reminder in Quran to observe nature.
Yes,
and
yes.
Baki says, thanks Allah for the children and grandchildren who remind us of peekaboo.
Peekaboo, there we go. Yeah, yeah. This is the learning from the other created beings, Mother Earth especially. So when we talked about that a month ago or two, that picture of when the Arifin, when the mystic guides, when the mystics, when they are born, they immediately turn back and look at their mother, and they learn from their mother. Now that means your small biological mother, or it means your large biological mother, your Mother Earth. And so that's how the people who truly recognize Allah everywhere are the ones who turn back on birth and look at Mother Earth, and they learn from Mother Earth. And then Ibn Arabi says, and Mother Earth is very eagerly desirous that her children should learn how to behave so that they will always remember who they are and where they're going. And so that's how Mother Earth wants us to remember these things, knowing that the other creatures on the earth know these things, and that some of these creatures, namely the human creatures and the jinn creatures, they don't understand these things and need to be reminded. And so that's how then sent often one after the other are all these guides to bring us back to the water.
Omar, I understand that the special face gives a formal reality to the message it receives based on its own form. So with the Quran being a universal message, what can we say about the formal reality given to it by the special face of the Prophet Muhammad,
Right.
peace be upon him?
Yes. So yeah, this is very interesting, because what we're looking at, the special face. So yes, every creature has a special face, but that special face, like a mirror, receives polishing. So Ibn Arabi says that mirror is never wrong. It just gets tarnished. It needs to be polished. And so the polishing of the mirror is the path. It's the path that we're on, is how to polish this mirror. And then, so we all have this special face. We all have this mirror. But in the one passage where Ibn Arabi is speaking a lot about this, and it's quite a beautiful passage, because two things he does first. He says, you might ask, am I a complete human? Am I a insan kamil? Am I a complete human? And he says, yes, you are, if this happens and that happens. So, oh, wow, the reader is being told it's quite likely that you are a complete human being if this happens and that happens. And then you might ask, am I a Khalifa? And you go, oh my God, this guy is pretty arrogant or pretty bold to say, am I a Khalifa? And he says, well, if you act and you see the things that you do are not happening this way or happening another way, then yes, behind you, there's someone acting. Then you are a Khalifa. And so we're all getting very excited about this passage because it's really saying, oh, wow, I could be a complete human. Oh, wow, I could be a Khalifa. And then he says, now, when you're ready to look in the mirror, do not look in your own mirror to look at Allah. Don't look in your own mirror. Look in the mirror of your prophet. So that's Muhammad, or it's Moses, or it's Jesus. Look in the mirror of your prophet. Don't look in your own mirror. So after we're all so excited about, oh, wow, I'm really able to see all these things so beautifully. He said, no, your mirror is not so great. You need to look at the mirror of your prophet. That's the beautiful mirror. That's the one that will give you the beautiful face of Allah. So he does tell us about, that's why we have this. We are not alone. We do have those we emulate. We follow in their footsteps. And so we follow in their footsteps because they are this beloved mirror that's made so beautiful. And in fact, that mirror, the first mirror that is looked at, which is the Nur Muhammad, is so beautiful that the one who looks at it sees the retinal after effect of that mirror image in everything else that comes. So everything else that comes, thank God, is coming as a retinal image, as like an after effect of the Nur Muhammad, the blazing light, which is so beautiful, which now can be seen in every other created being that comes afterwards. So, but to go to see that way, we say, well, look to Moses, look to Jesus, look to Muhammad, peace upon them all, and look through their mirrors.
So Latifa writes, going back to prayers, you explained about timing, but what about the form, shape, manner of praying? Does Ibn Arabi talk about the way to pray?
Oh, yeah. Every single fiqh, every single legal issue is looked at in volumes 3 and 4, and 800 or 1,000 pages, whatever it is. So do you put your hands here, 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 or here? Do you wash, the wudu, do you wash up to here? Do you wash up to here? Do you wash up to here? Every single legal issue is there. According, can a child lead you in the prayer? Does the woman lead the prayer? Does the person who is not a nice person lead you in the prayer? All of these questions, every single question. And they're, let's say 500, they're 500 questions that all classical scholars had to address. And he addresses every one of them. And he addresses in the most beautiful, amazing way. We have Nurasia from Indonesia might be here. She's written books on this, and I'm translating that passage as well. So stay tuned, and I'll let you know when volume 3 and 4 are ready, inshallah. Okay, so. Yeah, so when my mother was editing all these parts, the 500 issues of prayer, she would just say, oh my God, can't you just, what is this? Who cares if you rinsed your mouth this way or that way, and wow, it does get very deep, but each time you see something quite beautiful coming out. And so you realize that there's the outward and there's the inward, and that you can either be someone like Baki, who looks at the inward first and then finds the outward, or someone like me who looks at the outward first and then finds the inward. So these are the different ways. You can go from the detail to the whole, or you can go from the whole to the detail. And he goes back and forth, and that's called ettibar, to cross over back and forth. And so that's why he says that you want to be able to cross over, because a metaphor just doesn't kill one of the sides, doesn't make one of the sides vanish. And so you can't, so you don't say, so zakat means to give part of your wealth as a charity. So zakat also has the word tazkiyah, which means to purify. So he says the mistake is to think that if it means purification, that you only have to worry about the purification, the inward side. You don't have to worry about the outward. He says, no, zakat is purification on the inward, and it's giving wealth from your wealth on the outward, and that you have to have both. And the beauty is that each step of the way, you realize why the outward is important and why the inward is important. And then so he says you've got to keep both of them active at all times. And you don't X out one because, oh, that's just outward or that's just inward. So.
Dr. Winkel, may I ask you a question?
Yes, Armando, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you too. Just regarding to what you just said, I think you're bringing out this very important element of the action taking. By taking an action, it's almost as you're conveying to these realities, the non-manifest and the manifest together, right? Is that so? Is that what you pretty much are explaining, that how purification and giving zakat are actually the same reality, but on different levels. And by our own action, we can only unify it. Is that right? I mean,
yes, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly. So the inward purification, the inward intimate conversation with God, all of that inward then manifests, crosses the bridge to be seen as, oh, this is someone who I am now in conversation. So the inward then crosses over and has a physical, visual reality. There, beautiful. Yes, that's what, and that's it. Yeah.
Inspired.
And you might start out with an intimate conversation with Allah, and then that turns into, oh, this is how I physically do that, how I physically set up this situation. Or you might start with, I do this thing over and over again, and eventually I'll find out that, oh, I really am intimately conversing with Allah. And so that's how it can manifest or it can re-manifest in those different ways. Yeah, thank you.
We are acting as a kind of barzakh, unifying.
Yeah. So then you become the barzakh, and then crossing from one type. Beautiful. That's a nice image. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. So. All right. So I think we'll probably have to look at that third script next week. Maybe look into all of that. That's Omar was the one who gave me that, showed me that, and it's just absolutely beautiful. The third script. And so this is that source, that like a live wire. You put your hand, whoa! Now you're on the live wire, and then suddenly, and that's how Ibn Arabi said that suddenly that poem just kept going, and his dream, and he said if it ends, and so that's it. It just keeps. He's on there, and as long as he holds on to it, verses are going to be coming out and just coming and coming and coming. So, and that just is also a beautiful way to do that. Yeah.
So there's one more comment. It's really interesting when Ibn Arabi in one way gives special place to Muhammad by formulating the concept of Nur Muhammad, but in other pages of his, Ibn Arabi states his praise to Isa, Jesus.
Yeah. That's and Ibn Arabi himself, he has a very interesting relationship. I mean, in a sense, the ones he looks at are Moses, Jesus, Mary, Muhammad. And in a way, that's. I mean, you can also make the argument he looks at Fatima, but let's just look at those four, because the speaker, the idea of the Kalim, that Moses is the speaker who speaks with God, and then Jesus as the living word of God, and the Spirit of God. So he's the Kalim Allah, he's the Kalimat Allah, he's the word, the sentences of the divine, and he's the Ruh, the Spirit of the divine. And then Mary as the prophet who holds the living word. So someone has to hold the living word, give birth to and bear and hold and carry the living word. And so carrying the living word is, in a sense, the function of language. So language carries this living word. And so in a sense, you could say, here's the living word that's invisible. It's carried over here by the visible or the perceptible language and tones. So when you speak, you're speaking the living word. And that's how Ibn Arabi just loves the one that Allah says on the tongue of his slave, Allah hears the one who praises him. Sami Allahu liman hamida. And so that, can you see that this visible or perceptible sound wave is the living word? And so this way, Ibn Arabi, he loves Mary so much because he loves language and how grammar carries the divine meaning. So grammar and language and words hold and bear, as Mary does, this truth, this forever source of living word. And then, so this explains a little bit about why he's so excited about these figures. And so certainly, and I think it's quite interesting. So when my aunt also, when she came to the Dargah on our book launch a couple of years ago, and she doesn't know anything about Islam or even Arabi or anything like that. So after she came out and said, "Boy, you guys sure talk a lot about Jesus." I said, "Yeah, well, I guess we do." So and so many of the dervishes that we see, thinking of course of Zatia, but who have such close loving connections with Mary, loving connection with Jesus, with Moses, with Muhammad, and peace be upon all of them. So it's a beautiful pantheon of all these wonderful people who are languages and words and visible images that we can see. And so Ibn Arabi, speaks so gratefully for all of them, to all of them. So, okay. So, all right, well, thank you very much. And so, inshallah, we'll see you again next week. Everyone be good. Take care. Assalamu alaikum
Thank you
warahmatullahi
very much.
wabarakatuh.